My boss used my designs, sold them to a competitor, and then wrote me up for poor collaboration. So I printed the email thread, slipped it into our founder's weekly mail packet, and booked 2 days off. When I came back, the founder was waiting in the lobby. She said, "Walk with me." We passed my boss on the stairs, carrying a cardboard box. I've always been someone who just wanted to do my work and be left alone. I never played politics. I didn't network much. I just stayed in my lane, delivered good work, and hoped that would be enough. For a while, it was. I started at this company in 2019, right before everything went remote. I was one of the early hires on the product design team back when it was just me, a front-end dev, and one PM. We built fast, made mistakes, fixed them, and learned on the job. I loved it. As we grew, I became the quiet expert people leaned on. I didn't have a manager title, but I was mentoring juniors, presenting prototypes, and doing things most senior designers wouldn't touch. I thought I was on the right path. I thought if I kept working hard, eventually leadership would notice. Then Jeff showed up. He came in with a long resume and big talk, said he was going to scale our product org. He had that polished way of speaking that makes people trust him before he's actually done anything. Suddenly, we had frameworks, OKRs, weekly alignment calls. He didn't touch any design tools, didn't review our files unless it was for an exec meeting, but he started taking credit almost immediately. At first, it was small things, summarizing team wins in his own words, tweaking my slides before sharing them, that kind of thing. I thought maybe I was overthinking it, but every time we had something good to show, he'd find a way to put himself between me and anyone above him. Then came the project that broke me. We were ideating a full redesign of our most used feature. It wasn't even officially approved yet, just something I was exploring in my spare time based on user feedback. I had some rough mock-ups, a working prototype, and a vision I really believed in. I shared it with Jeff in a private Slack DM with a link to the Figma file and a short Loom walkthrough. I told him it was early and just wanted to know if it was worth pursuing. He replied with one sentence, "Looks promising, let's keep it between us for now." So I did. Weeks passed. I kept refining the idea, but never saw it in any roadmap doc or discussion. I assumed Jeff had shelved it, until I opened LinkedIn one morning and saw our competitor had launched a groundbreaking new tool. The screenshots looked familiar, very familiar. Same layout, same flow, same damn button copy. My chest went tight. I opened my Figma files, checked the timestamps, pulled up the original Loom. I knew what I was looking at. It was mine. Maybe they changed a few colors and slapped their brand on it, but I knew what I had created, and I knew I had only ever shared it with Jeff. I messaged him again. I was direct, but not angry. I asked if there was any chance someone from their team had seen our internal designs, or if we had some partnership I didn't know about. He didn't answer. I waited a day, then another. On the third day, instead of a reply, I got a calendar invite from HR for a performance discussion. When I joined the call, it wasn't a discussion. It was a formal write-up. The wording was careful. I was being coached on cross-functional collaboration, resistance to feedback, and working in silos. I felt like I was in a bad dream. This wasn't just a warning, it was a paper trail, the kind people use before they fire you. I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I just nodded and ended the call. Then I started gathering everything. I printed the Slack thread with Jeff. I printed the email where I'd first shared the mock-ups. I printed screenshots from my Figma files with timestamps. I included a QR code linking to the Loom video I'd made. I laid it out clearly, in order, with a simple one-page summary. No angry words, just facts. Every Friday, our founder Mariana receives a printed packet from each department. It's a tradition. Jeff always included his version of team updates in there. He'd cherry-pick wins and wrap them in polished language. So I made sure my folder was slipped right into the middle of that packet. Then I took 2 PTO days. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't check Slack. I just unplugged, ate takeout, and tried not to throw up from anxiety. When I came back on Wednesday morning, Mariana was in the lobby. just standing there. She's not someone you see often unless you're in leadership. But there she was, waiting. She looked at me and said, "Walk with me." I didn't ask questions. We walked together, silently across the floor and up the stairs toward her office. On the second floor landing, we passed Jeff. He was walking down the stairs, carrying a cardboard box. His face was red. He looked straight ahead like he couldn't see us. I didn't say a word. Neither did Mariana. When we got to her office, she shut the door and sat across from me. She looked tired. She said, "I read everything." And that was it. I don't know what she did behind the scenes. I don't know what conversations happened, who else knew, or how deep it went. But I knew that look. It was the look of someone who'd seen something she couldn't unsee. That was the day everything changed. After that day in her office, things started shifting. But not in the way I expected. For the first week, nobody said anything. Jeff was just gone. No goodbye message. No announcement. One day, he was in every meeting. The next day, his Slack profile was deactivated. I kept waiting for someone to pull me aside, thank me, ask questions, but nothing. The silence was thick. People looked at me differently, but no one said a word. I didn't feel safe. I thought, maybe HR would call me in, maybe they'd want to investigate me now. Maybe Jeff had covered his tracks better than I thought, and this wasn't over. So I kept my head down. I came in on time, left late, didn't volunteer for anything. I just waited. Then the rumors started. I overheard two senior PMs talking near the kitchen. One said, it had to be about that leak. The other said, or maybe he just pissed off the wrong person. They didn't say my name, but I felt their eyes flick toward me. I knew I was now part of some unspoken story. A week later, Mariana emailed me. She asked if I could come by her office. I thought maybe she was finally going to say something official, maybe even thank me. But that wasn't what happened. She said they'd started a quiet audit, not just of Jeff's projects, but of anything that had gone out to external partners in the last 6 months. She said my packet had open questions. I asked if I was under review, and she shook her head. Not you, she said, but not just him either. That's when I realized Jeff hadn't been working alone. There were other people on our partnerships team who'd been dealing directly with the competitor. Emails started surfacing. Slack threads. There had been a back channel. Jeff had offered a preview of our roadmap in exchange for a speaking slot at a big product conference, one that would have boosted his name, not the company's. And apparently, someone else in sales knew about it. I felt sick. This wasn't just about my design. It was part of something bigger, something they'd kept off the books. He had used my work as bait, and someone in our own company helped him do it. A few days later, HR called a surprise all hands. It wasn't optional. They said there had been a breach of protocol. They said departures had taken place. Still, they didn't say names. But we noticed who didn't show up on Zoom anymore. The partnership's lead, one of the VPs, gone just like that. That same week, my calendar started filling up again. But this time, with meetings I hadn't requested. First it was the CTO, then the head of marketing, then someone from legal. Everyone wanted to understand what happened. Everyone wanted to hear my version, not Jeff's. I realized no one had really known what was going on. He'd kept people in the dark and just made it look like we were all aligned. I wasn't the only one who'd been pushed out of the loop, just the only one who noticed soon enough. But the weirdest thing? Some people started resenting me for it. One senior designer asked why I didn't just bring it up in a meeting instead of going to founder. Another person joked that I had a direct line to God now. I laughed it off, but it hit a nerve. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was just trying to keep my job. I was trying to stop someone from stealing what I'd built with my own hands. I started getting pulled into more strategic meetings. Mariana asked me to write a confidential timeline of everything I'd worked on with Jeff. She asked who else had been involved. I gave her what I had. I was honest, but I knew what that meant. Other people were going to be exposed now, and they'd know it was me. My hands weren't shaking when I gave her that final document, but my stomach was in knots for days after. These were people I'd eaten lunch with, stayed late with, shared drafts and doubts and burnout with. And now, I didn't know who to trust. 2 weeks later, I got a Slack message from someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a year, Erin, a former designer who left suddenly last fall. She said, "I heard what happened. You weren't the first." That's when it all changed again. Erin's message stayed with me. I kept reading it over and over. You weren't the first. I asked her if she had time to talk. She didn't reply right away. Then, a few days later, I got a calendar invite. 30 minutes. No subject line. Just her name. She looked different on the call. Tired. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She said she was surprised I reached out. Most people just stayed quiet and tried to move on. Then, she told me what happened to her. Last year, she was leading a redesign on a smaller tool we had. Nothing flashy, but it was getting some attention internally. She shared the early versions with Jeff, hoping to get it on the roadmap. A month later, the whole thing was reassigned. Jeff said leadership wanted more senior eyes on it. Then the designs showed up again, barely changed, under someone else's name. She went to HR. They said they'd look into it. A week later, she got a collaboration coaching plan. Same words they used on me. That was her signal. She quit before they could fire her. She never knew if anyone else had been through it until she saw the news about Jeff leaving. When someone from the company quietly updated their LinkedIn with interim head of product, she put the pieces together. That's when she messaged me. She said Jeff had a pattern. Steal ideas, isolate people, use vague HR language to box them out before they could fight back. And leadership either didn't know or didn't want to know. Until me, hearing her say that made something click. This wasn't about a one-time screw-up. This was a long game. He'd been doing it slowly, quietly, to the people who weren't loud enough to fight back. And every time, he made sure they left looking like they'd failed. But now he had slipped. My printed folder wasn't just proof, it was the first time someone handed Mariana something too big to ignore. That same week, I was told the company had opened a formal investigation. But not into me, into HR. That's when I realized just how deep it all went. Jeff had close ties with the former HR director. They'd worked together at his last company. I'd never thought about it before, but now it made sense why his coaching plans all looked so clean, why no one pushed back on his version of things. He'd built a protective wall around himself. But now she was gone too. Quiet departure, no announcement. Just another name off Slack. The real twist came the following Monday. Mariana called a company-wide meeting. All hands. Mandatory. Everyone logged in expecting some roadmap updates. Instead, she dropped it all. She said they'd uncovered multiple breakdowns in leadership oversight. She said the company was making changes to ensure better accountability, more protection for employee contributions, and a clean break from prior mismanagement. Then she said this: "We've underestimated the harm caused by internal power dynamics. We missed it, but some people didn't, and we're here because of them." She didn't say my name, but every person in that meeting knew who she meant. My inbox exploded after. People I hadn't spoken to in months. Some just sent emojis. Some apologized. One person just wrote, "I believe you now." But not everyone was happy. A PM I used to work with messaged me and said I'd burned down the team. Another one said I'd made leadership paranoid. A few were clearly scared, wondering if they'd be dragged into it next. I wasn't celebrating. It didn't feel like a win. It felt like survival. Until one more twist dropped. I got an email, external, from the competitor, the one who'd launched my stolen design. It was short, just a message from someone on their product team. They said they wanted to clear something up, that Jeff had sent them those mock-ups weeks before I ever went HR. He told them he had full internal approval, that it was part of a co-launch plan. But there was no plan, and now they were worried. Because what they launched wasn't just mine, it was now legally in question. Because I had the files. I had the timestamps. I had the thread. Suddenly, I wasn't just a problem inside my company. Now, I was holding something that might cost two companies a lot more than pride. The email from the competitor shook me more than I expected. Not because I didn't already know what Jeff had done, but because of what it meant now. It meant they knew. It meant they were afraid. They tried to smooth it over. Said they wanted to clarify timelines. Said they had trusted Jeff's documentation and had assumed everything was above board. I didn't reply. I forwarded the message to Mariana. I attached my same original folder, the emails, the Slack thread, the design file timestamps. Everything again. This time, legal got involved. They called me into a room with the company's general counsel and a partner from some outside firm. They asked me to walk them through everything, every version, every comment, every time I'd shown that design. I told them the truth. I said I hadn't shared it with anyone but Jeff and one teammate. The lawyer asked if I knew how it got to the competitor. I just said, "You already know." It all moved fast after that. Mariana made it official. They were filing a formal IP violation claim against the competitor, not just to protect the company, but to make it clear that what happened wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was theft, and they named Jeff in the filing. I found out later he had tried to negotiate a private exit deal. He wanted a non-disclosure agreement and a payout. But once Mariana saw the competitor's email, she shut it down. They fired him for cause. He wouldn't get a cent. No severance. No references. His name was gone from the website within an hour. The fallout didn't stop there. 2 months later, the competitor pulled the feature from their product line. Quietly, with no explanation. But I saw it. Everyone who knew saw it. They took it down because their lawyers told them to. They didn't want a lawsuit hanging over them. I got an unexpected call from our investor board. One of the partners said he'd seen my case file, said he wanted to thank me. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever thanked me before. Mariana promoted me, officially, lead product designer. She gave me back pay to match the title. And more than that, she told the truth. In front of the whole company, she named me as the person who stopped the leak. She said I'd done what no one else had been willing to. She said I had integrity. It should have felt good. And in some ways it did. But mostly, I felt tired. I kept thinking about Erin, about how close I came to being erased like she was. If I hadn't printed that folder, if I just let it go, I might have been next. A few months later, Mariana asked if I wanted to lead a new product team. Full control. My call. I said yes. But I asked for something first. I wanted Erin brought back. Same title. Same pay. Full credit for the work she did before they pushed her out. Mariana didn't even blink. Send her the offer, she said. So Erin came back. Different badge. Same building. This time, she walked in like she belonged. And me? I don't trust people the way I used to. I document everything now. Every design. Every conversation. Every decision. Not because I'm paranoid, but because I know how fast people can turn on you when they're afraid of being caught. Sometimes people ask if I regret anything. I don't. I was silent for too long. I let people like Jeff walk over others because I thought being good at my job would protect me. It didn't. But the truth did. And this time, the right people paid the price.